Perfect. So without further ado, then let's get started onto the presentations. So first up, we have Max, Joe, and Vatsal from SpokeSafe. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and feel free to unmute yourselves and jump in whenever you're ready.
Cool. Oh, Vatsal. Vatsal, do you want me to start over the first couple of slides and then you can get on to the product stuff?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. So apologies for those that have to stare at a screen with me with a face mask on. I'm in a taxi on the way to Heathrow Airport, so you're going to have to bear with me for that. I can assure you it's way more uncomfortable for me wearing it than it is for you having to watch it. I'm the founder of SpokeSafe. We've got a really, really simple business, which is to provide cyclists with instant access to a network of secure bike parking spaces. We've got a couple sites open. The second site we opened in Soho a couple months ago. And the underlying issue that we were having and the need for tech was that we were signing up loads and loads of customers on a pay-as-you-go daily user basis, which was creating a ton of management hassle for me. Because all of the customer sign up, payment processing, and granting access to the spaces was being done manually. And it was a hassle for the customers because they would have to email us ahead of needing a space in order to get that process going. So it was a really lethargic, slow, disjointed process, which didn't really work for the business and wasn't really working for the customers. So what we proposed to do was develop an app which would effectively allow customers to sign up for the service, find and reserve a space, pay for that space, and then subsequently be able to access that space via Bluetooth or a 4-digit PIN code. So that's kind of like the background of why we needed to integrate the tech and a little bit about the business. I think I'll be very brief, but from a product owner perspective, I think the really interesting thing has been learning about how to prioritize the various bits of work that could be going on. There was a whole, obviously, sort of user flow, and we could have tackled any number of those things as part of that. And actually, the most important thing from the outset was to identify what could we do quickly to help alleviate some of those stress points for both the business and the users as quickly as possible. And so that's kind of basically where we got to in terms of identifying what we should be developing over a relatively short period of time. And on that note, I will pass across to Vatsal and Joe, and they can explain a bit further about what they did on the design process and then the building it out.
Cool. Thanks, Max. So what we did once we heard what the problem was is we started our design week, and what was slightly different about our design week was we spent quite a lot of time trying to understand the problem. And usually we kind of rush that process a little bit in previous design weeks. So that was quite nice and it really helped us to really get into the details of how things are working currently and what to do next. And we also streamlined the design process based on stuff which had been done before. So if we look at the Figma board, so there was a designer in Max's team who had made some wireframes, and we sort of took some of the components from this and streamlined it based on what we could achieve in the MVP. So this is what we created for that.
Cool. So as you can kind of tell, what's the vision for SpokeSafe as an end-to-end product, really, that covers everything from signing up to getting your space to using the Bluetooth. But there was an absolutely huge amount in that. So what we did is we did some really good user testing to kind of dig out what the priorities were and what we should be focusing on for the MVP. So we had some great user testing. One of them was Pepe. Who we love Pepe because he said everything is great. So there's no need for an app. So everything was excellent. But yeah, there was a really great community, but we did get some actual slightly more valuable feedback. We'll look at the next slide. So a few things. like to do with payments. People can be quite, you know, if they don't know what they're paying for, like security issues is quite a big one that we found out. Also, like, what do they do? You know, if you have a key to unlock something, it's quite easy. But if your phone dies and your bike is in a space, how are you going to get it? People wanted reassurance that there are ways to do that. And also, quite interestingly, we did initially think that the Bluetooth feature was quite a sticking point for our users, but through talking to them, they didn't actually mind using a third-party app to open the space. And they were more bothered about actually I mean, they all loved speaking to Max during the emails, but they also were quite keen to get like a more automated, like speedy process. So in summary, that is what we decided to do. We decided to focus on this sign up and payment process, but for a specific type of user, a pay-as-you-go user that would use it daily, and look at the monthly users later.
So I'm just going to do a demo of what we've got so far. So this is our home page. We're designing for the mobile primarily. And when we sign up, you can either pick a pay-as-you-go or monthly subscription. We're not focusing on the monthly subscription, so that at the moment doesn't do anything. But the pay-as-you-go, you can sign up as Jimi Hendrix. I've already done that a few times before, so Jimi Hendrix 5 and some random password. Once you've signed up, you can select a location. So at the moment we have Soho, and we're going to be putting in some more locations there and making this look nicer. We can pick a date. Over here, as you can see, a lot of these dates are disabled, anything which is in the past, and also dates where it's fully booked out, which is coming in real time from the database. So you can select a date where there's availability, and then go to the payment and make a payment for this. So we're going to be using a fake card. So this isn't my card details. This is from Stripe, Stripe test card. And then once the payment's made, you get a confirmation by email, which is also coming through.
Great, thanks for that demo, Batul. So yeah, you can see in the app, this is just one user flow for the pay-as-you-go user, but there is a lot going on in the background here, a lot of stuff. So what technologies did we use? We decided to go with the Firebase software development kit, which I think we both really enjoyed using, which was great. So we made use of the Firestore's NoSQL database. We hadn't used the NoSQL database before, so that was interesting to build our reservation system. Cloud functions, so like serverless architecture, and Firebase authentication. We also used React for the front end, but we decided to throw in TypeScript as well, just for fun. So that was it's quite a steep learning curve, but really, really interesting. And some of the supporting tech was Stripe for the payments, SendGrid which was the trigger to send the emails, Moment.js, and the React Day Picker. A few of those we'll expand on in further slides.
Yeah, so for the calendar, we used React Day Picker, which is just a calendar API. Moment.js, which allows you to make calculations on date type timestamps. And also we're getting real-time data from Firestore, which is our database. And sorry, for the payments, we're using Stripe. And we need cloud functions, which is like the serverless functions, sort of similar to Netlify Lambda functions, if you're familiar with that, which allow us to make a request, but keep our API key and stuff safe on the back end, in a sense. So we are using like a serverless architecture.
And I just mentioned like SendGrid, which is like an API, which is a trigger. So using our cloud functions, when the payment has completed, you would hit an endpoint, and that would like trigger an email being sent to our user and also to Max. which would be the confirmation emails. So a few of the challenges that we had, so for example, like a concept called transactions, in terms of if you have a certain amount of steps that you want to complete, say you're doing maybe 2 different writing steps to your database, maybe one completes, but then for some reason something fails before the second. So transactions is like a way to like roll back to, like, if 100% of the things don't happen, then none of the things happen.
Another concept which we are trying to tackle is idempotency. So like for the payments, the cloud function can make a request maybe more than once, which we don't want to happen. Like if there's a problem on the Firebase side, so we have to pass in like an idempotency key to make sure that the payment only gets submitted once and the users aren't charged twice for a payment.
Nice. And denormalized data. So I think founders and coders were all more used to SQL databases where everything is rigidly structured with a schema. But like NoSQL databases are kind of more like the Wild West. So you can have like bits of data living all over the place in different collections and stuff like that. So that was a challenge in itself. Like, how do we make sure that all of the data is like up to date?
And another thing which we're trying to do is take our app to production soon. And there's lots of challenges and security concerns which we'd have to go through, especially because we're making a payment system. But one key learning thing which I learned through this is that you can create different environments. Like if you store some keys, like local keys in your .env.development file, that will just run in development, and then you can have a .env.production, which will take those keys and put it into your build folder in React, I think. So React has all these different files which you can, different environments you can use like off the hook, so you don't have to configure much because it uses .env, the .env library.
Okay, so I think we're running out of time. So my big learnings actually were using Firebase was actually really good fun. Documentation is incredible, really good using a NoSQL database, and the real-time feature was really, really cool. We used that for a few things like the reservation system, and the calendar that Batsal mentioned is real-time as well. So the available dates will update based on other bookings to the database. TypeScript. I love TypeScript. Yeah, I didn't at the start. I absolutely hated it, and but I'm really glad we persisted with it. It's been a really good learning. And authentication, learning as well that the authentication file store is really easy, but actually like preparing like a custom hook, like in React, which kind of checks if you're logged in or not, wasn't as easy. So that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, some of my key learnings was custom hooks, which I've had a lot of issues with as well, because you can't use it inside a use effect and you can't pass it in as a callback and things like that as well. So you have to be careful of where you use that. Also, like something about teamwork is we started doing like daily affirmations, which is quite nice. And also like reviewing our process guides and like any agreements, and we had in the team every SGC, which we had once a week, and then also having a shallow file structure instead of nesting everything deep, and using naming conventions of the file names, which helped to make things a lot quicker in terms of development. TypeScript, also learning how to read docs and using other sources, because docs can be complicated sometimes, and learning how to do payments and managing dates.
So a quick touch on the future. So the next big steps is integrating the next step, which is going to be like the Bluetooth section and the third-party app, which is quite, and also like use with maps and monthly subscriptions.
So just what we'll be doing now is we're going to be creating, we're going to be improving the UI of the next month and all the front end stuff, and then so that it looks good for investors. And then in the next 2 or 3 months, we'll be taking the app to production and live testing. And next year, we'll be bringing in code locks, user management, and monthly subscription users. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions or like to support the project in any way, please do get in touch.
Thank you. Wonderful. That was a very informative presentation. I really liked how you went into quite a lot of depth on the technical stuff, but kept it high level as well. So next up, we have Akko, Ivo, and David from the West London Alliance. So whenever you're ready, then feel free to jump in.
Hello. Can you see the presentation?
We can, but I think your Zoom participants might be over the top.
I see. What about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Cool. It was Ivo and I. We were working with West London Alliance and West London Business, and today we are going to go through the who are we, what problem we were trying to solve. We are going to show you a demo of the site for the front end and for the back end as well. And we are going to talk a little bit about the tech we used and implementation details. Then we're going to also talk about what's coming next and where this product is going to continue to live. Project timeline, we had like 4 phases, 4 weeks. First phase was to design sprint and do first user research. The second phase was to set up the project and prepare for the development sprint and second user testing. And we finished it with the polishing and finalizing the MVP for the product owners. And the project team was me, Ivo. We were developers and we graduated founders and coders, and we were working on this Tech for Better project. And our product owners were David and Andrea, and they are from West London Alliance and West London Business. And then we can talk about what was the problem we were trying to solve.
Great. Shall I come in on that, Akko?
Yes, please.
Great. So just by way of background, I'm from an organisation called the West London Alliance. As Akko said, I lead on skills and employment strategy and policy there. We're a partnership of 7 West London boroughs, so we're a public sector body, but we work very closely with an organisation called West London Business, and Andrew, who's been working on this with us, can't be with us today because he's on paternity leave quite suddenly. But just to go through the problem, you'll all be aware that the pandemic is having a pretty catastrophic impact on jobs, notwithstanding that the furlough scheme, and that's particularly marked in West London, not least because of the impact of the near closure of Heathrow on the economy locally. So we're seeing what might be upwards of 50,000 jobs disappearing this year. So there's a real jobs crisis. But as we look forward, there are also a number of particularly important opportunity areas which will require residents in our areas to acquire new skills. And one of those particular areas is in what we're calling the green economy, so linked closely to jobs and skills for those jobs that support the environment in some way. And a big element of that is retrofitting of homes to become more environmentally friendly. And there's a specific opportunity there in that there's some very substantial funding running into £3 billion nationally, which government is providing to retrofit homes, and that in turn will really stimulate considerable numbers of jobs in West London. And there'll be areas like external wall insulation, air heat pumps that are much more environmentally friendly ways of building and retrofitting homes. We know that's an opportunity for West London, but frankly, it's a very new one. So many West London residents just won't have the skills, and quite possibly will have not the first idea of what this sector is and what the opportunities within it could be. So there was a real issue around raising awareness of that as an opportunity when people are out of work and in need of reskilling, but also to kind of navigate the marketplace for that. So what we were trying to do was really improve how people find opportunities for reskilling and upskilling for the green economy, and that's where the website Akko and Ivo have developed comes in.
Cool.
Back
And with
to you,
that, I'll now show you the website.
Yeah, shall I stop sharing?
Yeah. Cool. So there's actually two sites. There's two sites. So the first is like an admin site, which you can use to change the content on the database. So for instance, if you wanted to add a course to the database, you could click add resource, edit the stuff and save it. And then once you saved it, the front end site would actually rebuild. Sorry. Yeah, so the front end site would rebuild and the course would appear on the front end. And on the front end, we've got like a search feature. We've got career paths and courses. So you can get some kind of career guidance, some nice graphs. And then you can click on a course and you can see information about it. And then ultimately be taken to an external site. Yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, do you want to show the presentation?
Yep. So that was quick demos of the web page, and now we're going to talk about the implementation details. And this will be mostly about the tech stack we used. We used quite a lot of new things on this project, including Gatsby, GraphQL, recharts, Stroppy, TypeScript, and we successfully managed to use AWS. And yep, we're going to talk about this, but before that, we can talk about the design week. I want to show you Miro that we had for the design week. There is an amazing template now Miro comes with, and it's I think I will, because my voice comes to 2 times, but it's not my microphone.
Sorry, Akko, what did you say?
My voice comes 2 times. I think somebody's microphone is not muted. Yeah, cool. And this is a board you can generate on Miro, and it's under templates, and you can just find this virtual 4-day design sprint, and you have to just replace a lot of things and modify them as you want. We had our lightning demos, like the inspiration, then Crazy 8s. We ended up with the storyboard, and then we developed the prototype on Figma. And after that, we tried to implement all the designs we had in Gatsby. And Gatsby is a discovery for us. It's a static site generator. And what it means basically is like, first of all, it's a framework built on React. And it's very well connected to the Stroppy, and Stroppy is something we use in the backend to connect like this headless CMS for David and Andrew to use them without developers and add new courses without involving any new developers. And what happens with Gatsby is that it has 2 times, and first one is build time and second one is runtime. And every time you deploy Gatsby application, it builds. And when it builds, it fetches all the resources it can, or all the resources we ask for. And there is lots of plugins and lots of support on the Gatsby webpage. And in our case, we have written Stroppy API, and every time it builds, it fetches this data from Stroppy API, and it's accessible anytime. And this increases the performance of the web page. And the whole point of Gatsby is like to make your web page very fast, and all the data that you need is already fetched. But in our case, we are using actually external API, that is LMI API. So our site is kind of like hybrid, and we kind of use both build time and runtime queries. And runtime is like when your web page is active and users are making queries to it. And another thing to mention is that if you want to work with the data that Gatsby fetches, you have to kind of use GraphQL, and it's not the hardest thing to learn. It's quite easy and intuitive to use GraphQL functions, or a server that Gatsby generates, and Gatsby basically generates the whole web page as a GraphQL server that you have access everywhere. And also what Gatsby can do is that it can take your markdown files or JSON, or take any favorite, I don't know, CMS, and it will just like translate this to, you can make that translate to the new web page or a site. And another thing to mention is that the routing part is also abstract, like is taken away. It's based on the folder structure. And if you have pages folder, then all the routes for the different routes will be like based on the page, like this folder structure. So there is lots of things just like made it simple for you.
Cool, yeah, and now I'll talk about deployment. So we deployed to AWS using Amplify, EC2, and RDS. I'll mainly talk about EC2. Amplify is like a kind of Netlify style thing, and RDS is the database. So I found EC2 quite interesting because it's like literally just like renting a computer, basically, and then you SSH into it from your command line, and then you can do everything. And what we did is we literally installed Git, cloned our project, and then ran it. That wasn't quite enough though, because we still needed to set up a reverse proxy, which is like it's like another server sitting inside your machine. So now you've got two servers running. You've got your node server and your reverse proxy. And then your reverse proxy intercepts requests coming from outside and passes them on to the node server, which is effectively necessary if you want to do like, if you want to get like the HTTPS. So if you want to get a certificate, stuff like that. Cool. And the charts are done with recharts, which is pretty good overall, but it was a bit limited at times, so we had to go around it, and we had some problems making it mobile responsive. So I tentatively recommend it, but not necessarily.
Great. I will. I'll run through this briefly now, but I'm mindful of time given where we are. So I should say Andrew and I are really, really pleased with where Akko and Ivo have got this in such a short time. I think we've got something that we're really happy to showcase to our senior leaders. So we'll be taking it tomorrow as part of wider work on this whole area to a group of senior reps in London government and business, chairman, chief exec level, to show what's possible in a relatively short time in one of the areas that is quite pressing for us. I guess one thing to mention is we've got a framework, but and again, through no fault of Akko and Ivo's, we need to ensure there's more and better content on there, and a lot of that is down to the institutions locally, colleges, universities, and so on, to provide that data so that we can make this relevant. We've got an MVP, no question. It's looking great. We need to make sure the data feeds are working into that. We will be taking it forward with various partners to brainstorm on what next, what more we can do. So we, thanks to Akko and Ivo, got a kind of platform to share that. And we'll also be working quite actively looking at ways of broadening this out. We've started with green skills, particularly in construction. It could well have application more widely across West London and potentially London-wide to help people navigate their way into new and different skills to improve or access new work. And quite crucially, and Andrew, if you were here, would say something, we're also looking at ways of funding this so we can take it to the next level. But it's been a great experience, and I think we've got something we can definitely work with. I'll stop there.
And
Well, minutes exactly, so it's kind of perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Wonderful. And that brings us to our final presentation, which will be Giovanna, Campbell, and Matteo.
Yeah, hey. So me and Giovanna were working with Justice Defenders, and Matteo, the product owner from Justice Defenders. And I'll kind of get into a bit of what Justice Defenders is in just a couple of slides. Firstly, so here's the team. Me and Giovanna were other developers, and we had just graduated from the Founders and Coders web development program just a few weeks before we started work with Matteo. And this was kind of the first time that we hadn't had strict roles, because we were used to working in teams of 4, but this is the first time we worked in pairs. So we kind of didn't really have specific roles. We kind of just tried to share the load across all the roles. And ultimately we pair programmed the whole time, with only a couple afternoons or mornings working individually, but still together in a chat. And Matteo was our product owner from Justice Defenders. And so he's the one who brought us the project, and yeah, he was really, really great to work with, really responsive, and we always had fluid discourse with Matteo during the whole process. As for Justice Defenders, so Justice Defenders is an organization that serves to train prison communities in Uganda and Kenya with legal education. So they work in conjunction with the University of London to provide this education. And that's kind of where we came in. We were tasked with building an app that could store kind of university supplement and support content for the university course. So that's like lectures, audio, readings, that type of thing. And so, yeah, we were faced with the task of trying to build this app for prison communities. So, yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our design week. So we started with discovery and definition workshops, and during those workshops and the entire week, it became clear to us that the project had at least 2 different scopes. One was related to the whole content from the University of London Law degree, and also the content from Just Defenders, their own materials, and also a scope of related users, like being able to track your progress, have some forums where they could ask questions and help each other, submit assessments and everything. And so we decided that our main focus, our acceptance criteria, would fall under the content scope, and because everything starts from there, so that should be our priority. So we focus on that during our 2 build sprints. So we can move on to the next slide. So during the design week, we conducted both user research with 5 users and usability testing with 1. And we identified an overwhelming digital experience or offline access to the content, that like they were the main points, the main pain points for the users that we should focus on. So when thinking about content, we wanted user experience to feel effortless, so that you didn't feel overwhelmed or confused where they were in the process or where things were in the desktop as a broader space. So we wanted to rely on recognition and consistency during the whole process, but during the entire platform. And also the entire content should be, every piece of content should be downloadable. And you can see in our prototype, we have that nav bar on the left side that is still like, it stays with you during your entire journey. And we also have breadcrumbs at the top, just to facilitate the navigation and recognition of awareness of where you are. We had a second round of usability testing in our final week with 2 users, and the feedback overall was super positive, and they always knew where they were, and they were able to complete tasks, and they loved the idea of the functionality of download every single piece of content. So I think Cami is going to walk us through a demo now of the website.
Yeah, so it's just like a recording of us navigating through the site. And as Gio said, like we were dealing with a lot of content. So we wanted to make it as clear as possible where you were on the app. So we've opted for like a double nav bar type situation where there's, so you can always tell where you are within the app and within like the specific year or module or subtopic that you're in. And all of these pages are rendered almost completely dynamically from Firebase information. So that was, again, like quite a challenge to kind of render on each page the necessary information in the nav bars and the breadcrumbs and the content, and again, kind of highlight where you are within the application. Again, it looks maybe slightly empty, but that's we've allowed for kind of addition and editing to take place within the Firebase, so that more information can be added and it won't kind of disrupt the flow of the site. Oh, and also actually, because we were tasked with this unique user base, working within prison situations, we decided to try and to develop a desktop app alongside the browser. So here we have the desktop app. You can see it's pinned to my taskbar, and it's downloadable from the browser. And again, it's just the same type of layout, but within a desktop application. And we felt that would just kind of be a much easier way to kind of interact with the application from environments where maybe the Wi-Fi isn't so stable all the time, and you know, people might not be so proficient with using browsers. So yeah, here's the tech stack that we used within the project. So we have a React front end, and that was communicating with a Firebase NoSQL database. And then we opted for style components and material UI for some aspects, so the breadcrumbs and the PDF modal screen. We decided to just go for Cypress testing because so much of the information was dynamic. We felt that Cypress was the best way to test the pages that we were developing. And then Electron was kind of the really big new technology that me and Giovanna hadn't used before. And that kind of posed quite a few problems, especially kind of merging that with a React front end. But yeah, as you've seen, we got around it in the end, and we managed to make a desktop app for Windows.
Yeah, just in terms of like future development, if we had more time, or if you were hired to develop further, we would focus on this list here. So we think the contact with the database could be streamlined. Our navbar is coming from the database, so potentially that could be improved. So there's a lot of room with Electron for offline support of everything. We kind of focus on having the app, but like writing the logic for the whole offline thing could be like a build sprint in itself. So there's a lot of room to do that with NetDB and Electron. We would also focus on the user-specific features that we didn't implement because it would be super cool if they were able to use it to submit the assessments and to exchange tips and knowledge inside the platform. And we've also included teachers or admin functionality, so they could review assessments and have access to what the users, the students are doing. And yeah, that would be our list. And now I think I'm going to pass the word to Matteo.
Thanks, Gio. Thanks, Campo. You guys did an amazing job here. It's incredibly exciting to see this product coming together. I brought you quite a number of challenges. We work in very difficult environments in Kenya and Uganda. We work in prisons where connections to the internet, even to power, oftentimes is non-existent. So developing an app that could meet all those needs has been quite an incredible effort on your part. We have this University of London program. We have about 60 students who are graduating in law from within prison. And in the past, until COVID, we relied on tutors coming in and out of prison to bring the material, to deliver the training. But nowadays, with access to prisons being limited, we need to rely on technology and digital solutions to make sure that the learning continues. And so developing this app has been incredibly uplifting for our community, who's been part of the process. As we can see, the structure of the product is there, as well as the key features. We wanted the material in terms of the reading and of the papers, in terms of lectures and possible audio files to be present and be clearly arranged by year and by module, and then by subtopics, so that anyone, even the most tech illiterate person, could easily navigate the website or the app and find whatever information they would look for, as well as having at any point and stage an help sort of option in a way that will allow them to find whatever information they were looking for, even in the most for the most illiterate person in terms of technology. The platform interface is very much user friendly. Even those who had a very limited understanding of tech could navigate it. And as Joe explained, we have quite a clear way forward in terms of what the app could include. May there be funding available to develop it further. We want this to be not only a learning tool, but also a community building tool, so that all students from within prison, outside prison, from defenseless communities could access this app from a desktop, from a phone, learn the law, share experiences, share knowledge, and really grow and learn together. You go to the next step, Kenny. Yeah, I've learned a lot when it comes to co-creation and user-led development. In the international development world, we often use terms like grassroots and participation, but this process was incredibly participative and putting the users at the very forefront, being led by those who are going to use the product, despite the fact they were probably not the experts in this case. And it was an incredibly interesting process to go through. I learned a lot about sprints rather than marathons, and putting in efforts in a timely manner and being realistic with whatever expectations are there. The distinction between must-have and nice-to-have was quite eye-opening in terms of what can be achieved in the short term and what should be prioritized in order for the product to become viable. And indeed, we got to a stage where we're proud to present it to our community, and it drum up some enthusiasm amongst our people to see it develop further. So again, the future is quite exciting. If funding for developing the app further is there, having the capacity internally and through volunteers and others to develop the content material. So we're basically talking about law graduates and the like who would be able to put together video lecture, audio lecture, and any other educational material that could be included in the app. We could see this platform develop quite massively. Of course, at that point, given that we work in secure environments like prisons are, there will be a security testing to be conducted, developing a login mechanism that would allow also an admin person to oversee whoever accesses the platform would be a key feature. We've been thinking about mobile device management system to make sure that whoever uses a device with this app on it will only use the device for the approved purposes. And of course, we will need additional user feedback to make sure that everything we include is purposeful, will meet the needs of our prison officers and prisoners who are studying law from prison, and that we're creating this alongside them and for the benefits. But so far, the process has been incredibly exciting, and I look forward to seeing what can be possible. Thank you so much. If you want to get in touch, please do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for the presentations. And perhaps we can have another round of applause for everybody. And feel free to unmute yourselves. Wonderful. So I have only 2 or 3 more slides to share, just to close off the session, and then I'll let everyone head back. So just to kind of close off, we're very grateful to the generous support of the Paul Hamlin Foundation for kind of supporting us and allowing us to extend our Tech for Better program throughout the summer and to present these 3 projects to you. And throughout the autumn, we will be continuing to accept applications for our Tech for Better program from would-be product managers, and we're also accepting applications for any self-funded projects. So let's just thank again all of our teams for presenting today, both our developers and our product owners. And let's congratulate them all on their successes on completing our Tech for Better program. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. And I hope you've enjoyed your time. And I will be in touch for our next showcase, which I think will be in November time. Cheers, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
We got a good turnout as well. Look at that.